Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining this month's edition of the Wide Format Wednesday. My name is Tiffany Bisson. I am the supervisor here of the EFI Customer Experience Center in New Hampshire, joined by Danny Alkali.
Hello, good morning, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Danny Alkali, the product line manager for Wide Format here at EFI. Thank you for joining this webinar. Our objective this morning is to actually present and demonstrate our capabilities of printing on substrates, as well as showing capabilities of the printer for architectural and decor applications. One of the things that we're going to show you is the ability to print obviously rigid media. And this can be done on multiple types of printers in our portfolio, both hybrids as well as flatbeds. But for this session, we chose to actually show the flatbed Pro 30F, just to kind of emphasize the benefits of using a true flatbed. For this session, we've also invited Rob Levengood, the Director of Marketing from Interlam, and he's responsible for Interlam as well as a few more businesses that are actually focused on developing and designing substrates for the decor and architectural marketplace. So in today's presentation, we'll be printing on a brick white panel. They call it Rockstar. There's also an Acoustic Panel that's for acoustic printing, acoustic panels. And we'll have a silver slate that we'll be presenting and kind of showing the capability of the print itself. Really, the objective is not just to show the end results, but to really show you how we actually demonstrate the printing, some of the challenges, some of the tricks of the trade, if you will, to really try to give you the experience and understanding of what would it take to actually go and implement this yourself.
And again, where these are going to be some really interesting and challenging substrates, it's a really great opportunity for us to show you capabilities of the printer. And as Danny mentioned, you know, as these difficult, challenging, or niche substrates are coming into your offices and coming into your shops, different ways that you can best manage them. You know, again, if anybody's been on any of my remote demos, it's really about capability and being able to say yes to anything coming through the door. So we'll be talking about how you can say yes to some of these really interesting applications that your customers may bring through your door. And I believe we do have, is he unmuted? All right.
So Rob, can you hear us?
I can hear you.
Introduce yourself? Oh, perfect. So anything to add about Interlam and the group of businesses that you have, and kind of talk a little bit about what you bring to the marketplace?
Well, the focus for the products in all four companies that I run the marketing for is to basically give unique substrates, unique panels, because the majority of our product line are panels, specifically for walls and ceilings, to get that to the designer, the architect, that where they need it to solve a design problem issue that they have. And printing on the substrates is something that we do currently, and I'm really looking forward to seeing the results of your testing there. You know, it just adds another dimension to what designers can use our products for, and not just our products. I mean, I'm sure your printers can print on a whole bunch of substrates, not just what we have. So, you know, I'm looking forward to seeing what it's like.
Thank you very much, Rob. And really, again, I think the objective here is really to kind of give you the tools that really looking at these applications as a solution, and not just, you know, this is a printer, this is a substrate, this is the ink, this is a software, but looking at more as a whole. And this is something that EFI does really well, because we basically supply three of these key elements, which is the printer hardware, the ink, and the software. And having the ability to kind of integrate all of these features really can give you a better overall solution and more value to your customers.
Absolutely. And as we're going through this, Rob, if you want to go ahead and, ask some questions, and, we'll be calling on you to make comments about the products as well as we're going through this. So please continue to make this interactive, okay?
I can do that. Thanks.
Perfect. My pleasure. So as Danny mentioned, we have a couple of different products that we're going to be printing direct to today on the EFI Pro 30F. The 30F is our newest launch into the flatbed market space. Its younger brother being the 24F, a bit of a smaller bed. Over here, what we're bringing to the table different from the 24F is going to be a larger table, magnetic linear drive. We doubled up on our print heads, so we are getting significantly more productivity, more volume. But probably, I would consider to be most important is going to be that 4-inch gap clearance. So we have the ability now to print on substrates up to 4 inches thick. When you're talking about these brick panels and these Acu panels, the acoustic panels that you're going to be seeing later on in the demonstration, they're quite thick. And then also when you're talking about just flatbed in nature, you can print, to jigs and all kinds of tchotchkes and things like that.
Yeah. It's all about trying to create more value and give more options.
That yes factor, right? You want to be able to say yes to anything coming through the door. So what I have on the table right now is the slate product that Danny mentioned from Interlam. And, Rob, if you want to comment on maybe where you're seeing these installs or, what people are using them for. Once I get the printer going, we can discuss that while the printer is processing. So right now I have the sheet loaded on the original 00 point. Another differentiator that we made on the upgrade to the 30F is we have two 00 points. The original 0 point is going to be on the front right of the table. I'm going to go ahead and turn on the vacuum to hold the material in place. We have a pin registration system here. You can raise and lower the pins as you're loading your substrate. So that's going to give you a really great true 00 point for initial print on side 1, but then also on side 2, you can flip it over. And again, we have that second 0 point on the other side. So you're using the same point of register. For this application, we just have the one side print. So we load your material up against the pins. I'll go ahead and lower those pins, activate the vacuum with a foot pedal. Over here, you can see behind Danny all of these red handles. That's going to be how you change your zoned vacuum. So the table has 6 individually controlled zones. What that's going to really leverage the power of the vacuum in that you can close off areas of the table that you're not using and funnel all of the available vacuum to the area of the table that you are using. So that's going to eliminate the need to mask off with craft paper and cut out templates and things like that to get sufficient vacuum. Over here, you can just open and close on the fly. So I'll go ahead and engage the vacuum right now. I just have zones 1 and 2 activated, which is going to be what I use to hold down the substrate. And this material, as you can imagine, is a true slate. There is some dust and debris on here. There are peaks and valleys, so there is a really true slate texture. It's really, really beautiful. It has a nice shine to it. One of the challenges that we have over here, as anybody knows, in a flatbed or bidirectional print world, as you have peaks and valleys, you need to try and consider best ways to print to allow for good print quality in both directions. So what I did here is I set my gap to where I found the highest point, which happens to be over in the back. Now, we have the ability to do an automatic gap where we have a pneumatic pin on the carriage that will lower, come in contact with the substrate and set the carriage height. Over here, what I did is I mic'd it, I got the highest point, and I manually entered that into my carriage gap. So with my media thickness down here, I have my thickness already established, which is going to give me a solid, consistent carriage height over all of those peaks and valleys. So what I'm going to print here is going to be our 4-pass production. I have white with CMYK. I'll go ahead and engage the print.
And how many print heads are you using at this with this machine?
Great question. So it's a 4-color unit. So we have 2 heads for each of your CMYK, and then 4 heads for your 2 channels of white.
Okay, thanks.
So what you'll notice while this is starting is that the carriage is only going to travel in the area of the table that contains that print data. There's no unnecessary wear and tear. It's not going to make a full pass. It's not going to do any head maintenance in between passes. It's just going to continually print edge to edge over the area that contains that print information. Now, in this instance, we're running a 48 by 24, I believe it is. We can get these either in different size sheets, or if you're running full murals, which you'll see complete a mural at the end of the demonstration, you could stage these multiple different sheets up and then manage that layout within the print control utilities. Another thing that you'll notice is that, oh, go ahead.
Sorry, no, I was gonna say, I mean, because microthin slate is it's a genuine stone veneer. If you did that without printing on it, it would you would have slight differences in the color and the variation of the stone, and that's that's a natural look. But what you're trying to do, what you guys are trying to do, is give it a nice uniform look, and then bring out, I think, the natural stone look, I guess, within that print.
Yep, that's absolutely correct. I'm going to ask Danny to step off camera and grab the pre-printed slate so that we can hold that up so you can see what that looks like. So what we did here is we have a combination of white ink and CMYK ink, upside down, Danny. So what we did is we allowed that natural slate substrate that Rob was just talking about. We allowed that to come through as a great texture on the tree branch, and then as well as in the stones that you're seeing down here in the ocean. Of course, it's a little difficult to see on camera, but the stones look stone. The tree looks like it has a really great birch bark, and then we're using that really great white, super white opaque EFI ink to block out areas of the texture or the substrate that we don't want to come through. Again, difficult to see on camera, but it also has a really great sheen. So our designer here put small amounts of white ink in the area where you wanted to really control that sheen, to really control that rock look. And again, you can create all kinds of really cool effects using the combination of that EFI white ink, combination of multi-layer handling with the EFI hardware, again, right now on the 30F, but on any of the products across the portfolio. And then again, when you're using a really great product like this slate product, you have that sheen, you have that texture, and as you can see, it runs really, really great.
Looks like it ran really, really fast. That only took about 90 seconds.
It is pretty quick. So this one here.
So one next to the other.
This one has a much reduced ink white ink laydown because this is a stone facade. So again, as I move it around a little bit, you can see some of that sheen. So we have the stone facade down here where we didn't put any, a lot of white ink, allowing that to have that texture. And then we have, sort of that antique, and again, kind of difficult to see on camera, that little bit of a antiquing shimmer that you can see in the water down in the lower left-hand corner. So again, the combination of printer, hardware, equipment, utilizing that shape white ink, and then a really great product like this Interlam slate is a really great pairing.
There's quite a big element associated also with preparing the image, right? So having somebody who is very capable, knowledgeable in that faction really can create a huge difference, because really you're starting to leverage it at a high level of quality and capability. Yeah,
and again, if anybody on the line has been on any of my demos, you'll know that you're only limited by the width and throat of the printer, and then the creativity of the person behind the scenes, right? So if you can look at this slate and don't just see it as slate, you see it as bark, you see it as stone facade, you use that shimmer. Again, you'll see a really cool application with the bricks and the acoustic tiles. All of this stuff, it could just be plain, or, again, if you have a really creative person behind the scenes, can really bring that to life, utilizing the printer and, again, that software. I'm going to have you grab these. And Danny, if you want, if you could grab the white brick, right, the bricks right on the table right there, Sean, are there any questions on the line that we should address before we move on to the next application?
No, nothing yet at this time, Tiffany. Thank you. For those on the line, if you do have any questions, those that are muted, you can enter those in through the Q&A panel to the right-hand side of your WebEx controls, or you can put them into the chat as well. Both are being monitored.
Flip it around.
This one.
All right, so these, as you can see, quite heavy. And I'm going to let Rob speak to the makeup of them as far as the components and the sizes that are available as well, while I get the next file set up.
Sure. This particular product is called Superrock. Superrock has fairly standard thicknesses that are between 1 and 2 inches thick. You can find the, we have a couple of dozen designs on our website at interlam-design.com. These they all come in white, so they are printable by nature. And they are completely made out of gypsum, which is a kind of a sheetrock material. And gypsum is also, it's reinforced with fiberglass. So they are a completely Class A fire-rated material. They don't use formaldehyde. They don't use plastics. They have no VOCs. And it looks like, from what I saw on the test print that they sent me, it prints very nicely. So
it does, yes.
And I'm looking forward to seeing what this is going to be.
Right, and just a comment about the VOCs. So our inks do not have any VOCs, as well as we did get the Green Guard certification on these printers as well. So
Green Guard Gold, actually.
Yes,
right?
we did. So there's constantly investment on our side and kind of looking at it more as a system solution and not just like a printer.
Right, absolutely. And again, just speaking to multiple products in the portfolio, that Green Guard, again, where this is an interior, assumed interior, architectural decor piece, things like wallpapers, and if you're going to put those slates up, you don't have to worry about a heavy smell or anything like that, and really great cleaning services right there. All right, so for this one, because it is, I did pre-print one, it is a quite forgiving material as far as drop placement goes. It holds a really good dot. It doesn't absorb the ink really well. So what that means is that you can print at a higher speed and still have really good quality. So I'll go ahead and engage the print. So we are, while this is going, we are utilizing the Ricoh Gen 5 Printheads. It is a 7 picoliter drop. So again, when you're talking about print quality and drop placement, we're gonna have a really, really fine drop. I'm still surprised how many times resolution comes into the conversations. But in the inkjet world, if we're printing like-for-like resolutions, but a comparison of a 7 picoliter versus a 12 or 32 picoliter, we're going to have inherently a better perceived higher resolution because we have a really great small drop size. I'm going to go ahead and take this opportunity to zoom in on this a little bit so you can see what we're doing. So again, we're only traveling in the area of the table that contains print data. Those lamps, LED, cool cure, instant on, instant off, and independent of each other. And again, as offering a solution, you can take it from the print table and go right to install. You don't have to do anything afterwards. It's completely dry as soon as those lamps hit the surface of that substrate. And as you can see, really great uniform thickness and really consistent build on the material side. And then again, as the printer, material is going to stay stationary. The carriage and the gantry are going to travel. So as long as your product stays nice and flat and is reliable, like this product is thus far, you can have some really super cool, easy to produce applications. Easy to produce and quick to produce, as you can see, which in turn is going to be, of course, better cost analysis, if you will, for the store owners on the line. It's a really custom application that you can charge a prime fee for. But it's incredibly easy and quick for you to produce and to manage.
So
one advantage of the Superrock product is almost all of the Superrock patterns that we have you can line them up side to side and top to bottom, and they are continuous within the pattern. So you could line up.
Yep, exactly.
It looks like three on that, at least three panels on that one printer bed.
Yep, so this is multiple panels, and that's a really great point, Rob, in that you can tile them left to right as well as top to bottom incredibly easy and with really great registration. Pair that in with that flatbed application and you're going to get really great image placement as well. And the other key element here that I want to point out, utilizing these print modes, again, you can take one material or one pattern and, you're not limited like you are with some other print technologies where, you've got heavy, expensive plates to manage, where you can only have one pattern, you can only have one image, you can only have one texture. Utilizing this, you buy, quantity of the base material, and you can have an unlimited number of applications. So you can offer this graffiti effect. We've got the one behind Donnie that is more of a fine art mural. You can have a brick texture. It can be anything. You're really not limited, again, other than that creativity of the person behind the computer. So you can purchase one product, and if you have a high volume of that product, you manage a high stock, high inventory, because you can offer any type of application to the end user.
Right. So you're definitely looking at it from a business standpoint, but if you're looking at it from a market standpoint, right? We know that in the decor world and in the architectural world, having the ability to customize, to be unique, to stand out, it's a big deal.
Absolutely.
And now we can, you don't have to be a celebrity to do that and, pay an arm and a leg, but you can do that in a very competitive environment and still be able to kind of show uniqueness.
And again, because you don't have to buy 500 of the same pattern or 500 of the same, output, I come in and my 9-year-old son is like, heck yeah, that's going to be super cool in my room. And then maybe your wife wants something nice in the living area or whatever. You don't have to keep high stock of just one pattern. You have complete control over what goes over all of them.
Right. And especially for architecture and internal designers, right? Having the ability to absolutely go from one customer to a different customer, having that imagination, creativity side of it, but also in the same house. If you're trying to go from room to room, having that capability to customize it. It doesn't have to be the same material, but being able to kind of have the access to that technology is kind of a big deal.
And on a previous webinar that we held recently, we had a customer that was saying to us, that their business grew exponentially, double-digit, for making one change to their marketing strategy, and that they go to their customers, they're paired up with an interior designer or an architect. They go to their designer and say, all right, you can have this base model of wallpaper, of, acoustic tiles, whatever the package is, but anybody else in the world can have the same package. But for a nominal fee of X, we can customize it for you. And most of the time they're saying, these customers are saying, yeah, I'll pay the extra to be the one and only, to have, exactly what I want, to have this crazy design, or, something a little bit more intricate, maybe something a little bit more personal. You go to a hotel, and instead of all of the rooms being the same, and just like the hotel you stayed in a different state, now every room can be different, or every state can be different based on, state design needs. So that's a really great niche thing. Again, you buy that really great product, pair it with a, a system, like Donnie was saying, a system of the hardware, the software, and the ink, and you can really offer those end users quite the application range.
Right. One thing we wanted to show on this was these gaps. One of the challenges associated with printing with media that has deep gaps with Inkjet is that the jets can only print, from typically 1 to 2 millimeter distance between the media and the bottom of the printhead. So what happens when there's these deep gaps in the material? And that's something that we really have to kind of take into account in the printing. And there's, some tricks associated to this. But the reality is, what you're going to do is you're going to calibrate your print to the topmost location on the media. So first of all, let's see if we can kind of show you this gaps that we're talking about, the steps. Okay, you can see the steps quite clearly. Okay. And then you can see what happens. You have very good accuracy of droplets on the higher elevation, and in the gaps, you kind of lose some of that focus. Okay.
So on the printer side, you're just going to make sure that you're calibrated to that high point, that peak, not the valley. And then, of course, because the jets aren't raising or lowering over those peaks and valleys, you're going to be printing to that top surface and not directly into in this case it would be the grout lines. In other cases, you may have seen us printing on doors or on privacy screen dividers. And in a flatbed, bidirectional print world, you are jetting from a fixed location, and the receptive or the end material is also going to be at a fixed height. So that's something to consider. In the instances that we've just printed, a fine art and then something that does have some pretty decent edge definition, both of them work perfectly fine for a 3 to 6 foot viewing distance application, which is completely realistic. Another option would be that you could build into your file, in this case, a little bit of a grout. So you've got your image, you could break up your image and then, fill it in with a printed grout line as well. So you can help hide some of that a little bit also. But again, from the end application of say 3 to 6 feet, it's going to be a perfectly acceptable application.
Right, and it's all about setting the expectations right for the customer, so that when they go and assess the quality, that they understand kind of why, but also being smart of what kind of image you choose and to show, and highlight.
And so one comment that I do want to make about the last two substrates, the brick and the slate, you probably noticed that I didn't set my gap automatically. So in the software, I do believe you guys have a software feed. In the software, you can see that you can manually enter your carriage gap. There you go. So you can manually enter your carriage gap as I did here. So much like I did with the slate, I found a high point on those bricks. I laid them all out. I found a high point and I put that in as my manual gap. In traditional signage or materials, much like the acoustic panels that we'll be printing next, they lay really flat. They're consistent in height. You can set a fixed location and the carriage will automatically go in and travel to that fixed location. There's a pneumatic pin on the front right side of the carriage. As that carriage lowers, that pneumatic pin will come in contact with the surface of your substrate and the carriage gap will automatically be set. In the instance of the acoustic panels that we'll be printing next, that's a really great feature because you can just fill the table and run production volume very quickly without having to go in and change any gaps or anything like that.
And this is obviously critical when you choose the supplier of the material, to be aware of the specs and kind of the margins that you have to play with, because obviously this could impact the productivity of your equipment and in your day-to-day.
Yep.
So we do have a few questions coming in through the line.
Okay.
Sure.
First, can you achieve translucency and print onto PVB and PET films? So being able to achieve that level of translucency, perhaps with white ink, something like that. And then can we print onto rolls, like an unroll and re-roll?
So translucency, yes, we have varying capabilities of translucency. So if you're printing on a clear substrate where you don't have any white ink, you will have some shimmer and some translucency there. So I have got some really great samples where we have a sailboat at night, and the sailboat has a shape white behind it. So when it's backlit, you're not seeing any light come through the sailboat. And then there's a starry sky. All of the stars have white behind them. When you backlight it, that night sky is semi-translucent. It's a very dark color, but it's still semi-translucent and plays a really, really cool effect on the finished product. So areas that you do put white, you will be really, really, really opaque. Again, one of EFI's, great offerings is that, differentiators is the neutrality of our white. It doesn't pull cool, it doesn't pull warm, as well as the opacity right out of the gates. So we've got a really great opaque white, but it is, you can use levels of white. So if you use a 50% white, you're going to reduce some of that opacity. So if you wanted something a little bit to show through, not completely blocked out, you do have that capability as well. As far as the roll-to-roll stuff, I'm gonna let Danny answer that one.
Sure. So this printer by itself does not have a roll-to-roll feature. Typically in those cases where we see customers that have more than 90% of their media being rigid, we kind of gear them towards the flatbeds, whereas if it's lower, we have a great hybrid offering, and in those cases, we kind of direct them to the roll-to-roll capability on the hybrids. With that said, you do have the ability to kind of roll the sheet onto the bed and basically print directly to the sheets, from a thickness perspective. It's just more, we're looking at this as unique scenarios and not kind of a production environment. But again, not
so
saying
low,
no.
low volume flexible materials would have to be sheeted and then placed
Correct.
on the table.
Correct.
How about now talk a little bit about production. Question from Rob says, which layout would be the fastest to print? Would it be front to back or side to side? And if front to back, can you continually offload and reload?
So yes and yes, but I would do it the opposite, right? So you are going to get the most productivity out of the printer by utilizing the full width. So what Danny and I would suggest would be that you load your print sheet on the back side and then use the front side as prep. So you can utilize the back half of the printer. You could have your Acoustic Panel or your 8-foot piece across the back of the printer while you're staging the next inline print at the front. And then you would just offload off the back, push the one in the front to the back. While you're printing, you're also staging.
Right. Now again, this is for an experience, then you have to make sure that the operator is protected and he knows what he's doing, right? Because from a safety standpoint, we don't have any sensors or anything like that for that specific operation. We do have the ability to obviously upload and unload, but it's not separate zones and that capability.
Right. So again, the short answer is yes and yes. Yes, you can have the different production levels staged. You're going to get the most productivity by using the full width.
Absolutely.
Continuing on that line of productivity, I think this will be an easy one. Does the 30F have Ricoh Gen 5 heads?
Yes, we are running the Ricoh Gen 5 print heads with 7 picoliter drop. We are running 2 heads per color. So you have 8 for your CMYK and then an additional 4 for your 2 channels away.
And then what is the maximum distance between the print head and the material for a good print?
So for a good print is non-relevant because you have the ability as an operator. It's not a serviceable action item. As an operator, you can create multiple bidirectional settings. So by default, you're going to be running at 1.5 millimeters or about 60,000ths of an inch over the surface of the material. As you increase significantly, not necessarily just by going from 1.5 to 2, you won't really see a big degradation in print quality from there. But if you were to go to say 2.5 or even 3, you would then have to adjust your bidirectional. So that is a software setting. It will initially take a few minutes, not very long, to figure out what that new bidirectional setting needs to be. But once you have that established, you can go ahead and save it either in a text file, on the desktop or just write it down. Once you know what that number is, you can go into the software and say, all right, this material I'm going to run at 1.5, and this is my bidirectional setting. If you're printing on AstroTurf, or if you're printing on, I don't know, a cornhole board, where you might need a little bit more space to keep your jets protected, you could then say, all right, now I'm going to be printing at 2.5, or I'm going to be printing at 3 millimeters, and this is my setting. The reason why you need to adjust for that, and Danny touched upon it a little bit with the bricks, is that in a bidirectional print world, your surface is staying flat, and as the carriage travels in one direction, it's going to fire drops in this direction, and then the expectation is that you can fire the drops and have them land in the exact same spot in the other direction. Now, at 1.5, that's going to be dialed in at install. If you need to change that, now those drops are going to be overshooting or undershooting each other and not lining up. You're going to get fuzzy edges. So again, as an operator, you don't need to call for service or support. As an operator, there's a bidirectional test that you print, you evaluate, and you make an adjustment based on that increased carriage gap.
Again, this is not something that typically is done, from job to job. Most businesses kind of align it at, based upon the majority of the material that's going to come through. Mm-hmm. But it's something that's capable, especially if you're going for something that's really unique. From this media that we've kind of showed you today, what's the typical gap that you'd recommend somebody to set it up at?
So I went from 1.5 to 1.7 on everything so far, so I didn't have to make any adjustments to my bidirectional. With the bricks, I did change at the printer level from running bidirectionally to unidirectionally. It does slow the printer down, but because there was such a variance, from brick to brick, if you run unidirectionally and you have one established gap, you're not going to have to worry about that bidirectional because you're only running in one direction. Again, it slows the printer down, but it gives you the opportunity to very quickly and very easily, without making a lot of modifications to the printer or within the software, allows you to get really good print quality on some of these more unique materials.
A couple questions about ink. So I know, Donnie and Tiffany, you mentioned having the Green Guard Gold certification, but there was a question here about, do we have a soft UV ink after it's cured, or do we have any other types of inks maybe for the 30F?
Sure. So with the Pro 30F, we're offering a couple of inks. At the moment, we are actually having the rigid, the EFI Pro Graphics UV rigid ink, and we're in the process of launching a new high adhesion ink called the EFI Pro Graphics UV XA, which is going to be the softer of the two inks that we just mentioned. I think from a timing standpoint, this XA ink is going to be available for demo. It's actually what we're printing here today, but also it's going to be in full production starting in August.
And again, this is just one printer. We have a full portfolio of different types of printers and more ink options than printer options. So if there is a need, anybody on the line that needs something specific, we could certainly work through what those specific needs are after the webinar.
So as it relates to durability, would any of the panels, the Interlam panels you've shown so far today, and with the ink on top of them, would any of those require protective coating for durability?
Well, probably it depends on the application and, how much are kids going to be touching it? Is somebody going to be standing and touching it with his shoulder, or, really the environment? So typically you don't need it, but EFI does have a slew of armor coatings that can be used and utilized for this application, and just to really protect the mural or whatever we're going to be printing on.
So, and if I can just add to that, it's going to depend on the end application. Is it a horizontal installation or is it a vertical installation? Vertical installations tend to be a little less in contact with things as opposed to horizontal, being countertops or furniture or flooring or anything like that. Those tend to have more contact with them. And, again, if it's a flooring application, I mentioned AstroTurf or whatever, if it is a flooring application, it may require that additional step of an armor coating or something like that. Some vertical applications, we had one customer who came out of the gates and they were printing wallpaper in full production, and being that it's a flexible application, we, of course, went to a flexible ink set. Turns out they needed the rigid ink set for their application because as wallpaper, people are hitting it with their backpacks. You sit down in a boardroom or whatever, and you back up and your chair hits it. So we have all kinds of different inks available, and if it's not an ink solution and it's a coating solution, we certainly have that ability as well. Again, if there's something more specific that we can address offline, I'm happy to be in contact.
And a big variable, obviously, is how long is that material going to be installed, right? I mean, things that we're showing today is probably going to be a very long-term installation, but as you mentioned, if it's going to be in a trade show floor, then short-term, less of a challenge.
Do you ever print on glass?
Yes. Really good question. So again, it's going to depend on the end installation. So are you printing first surface or second surface? If you're printing second surface and mounting it to something or hanging it up where it's not going to be picked at or walked on or a lot of cleaning, then you can just go ahead and print direct and not have to worry about any pre-coats or post-print treatments. If it is not one of those scenarios that I just mentioned, we do have an EFI cleaning solution that we would recommend that you clean the glass with. Print direct to the glass, and then also post-print baking it to really make sure that adhesion gets you where you need to be.
Okay. I do definitely want to get to show the mural in the panel. Right. So Can we kind of jump into that and then answer questions in parallel?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
loaded with questions, though, so everybody on the line, thank you very much. Keep sending your questions. I do have a few we haven't answered yet. We will get to those, and we'll keep working on them. So thank you so much.
All right, so as Danny mentioned, the next piece that we're going to be printing on is going to be an acoustic panel. The initial design that you see printed may not make complete sense, but I have, rest assured, I do have the additional pieces that will make this a complete mural. So this is just going to be a portion of the completed product. Perfect. So again, Rob, if you want to talk about this product while we're getting it set up, setup really is quick and easy. It lays really flat. I have the pin registration over here. There are install edges, so the gaps between each of these wood slates, one edge has an overlap and one edge does not, so that when you're putting them together, you have a really consistent gap between those sheets. So all I'm going to do is push it up against the pin registration system, lower the pins, turn on my vacuum. I am going to close the third chamber and open up the fourth. This is going to isolate all of the vacuum to the front part of the printer.
So I guess what we're printing on now is a product that we have called AccuPanel. It's probably the hottest product that we have going currently. AccuPanel is a beautiful
Gorgeous
product. Yeah, thank you. It's a beautiful wood panel, wood veneered panel that can also be Class A fire rated. So it can go into any type of commercial application that needs qualification of Class A fire rating. It has a 0.85 NRC rating, which basically means that it's getting you a very, very nice sound dampening device in a room. Technically, our panels are standard in 7 different wood veneers. I think what we're printing on right now is a natural oak, if I'm not mistaken. I think that's what it is. And from what I saw, it prints really well, and I'm looking forward to this print as well. AccuPanel also can be a plain MDF solution. Basically, the wood slats, if you will, can be. They do not have to be faced with any type of veneer, and you can print directly on the MDF. So that's an idea too.
So as I mentioned, and if you still have the software, but I went ahead and manually put in the media thickness. Again, I gauged this previously, and again, it lays really flat. It holds pretty true. So I'm just going to go ahead and engage the print.
Tiffany, what mode are you going to be printing here on?
This is going to be the distant outdoor view, no white, and I chose this mode because the material is, really, again, it holds a really good drop, and it's going to, because it has a texture, it's going to hide any end user, artifacts or anything like that. So I'm choosing to run it really quick. Again, the print quality is going to be great, and once we put these panels together, you'll see that it's a really, really cool finished application. And what we did here, again, on the pre-press side, is we took the full finished size that we're going to have for the finished panel, and we divided it out into 3 panel sections. So on the pre-press side, we created one full image and then tiled that image again in Fiery. And then now we have 3 panels that are going to line up together to create one complete image, one final mural size. And again, printing direct, we're not having to worry about those gaps or anything like that. We're going to print, direct to the material. And again, as soon as those lights hit it, it's completely cured and ready to get put for installation.
Now, while that's printing, Tiffany, there was a question. So you mentioned the registration pins, and are those located on the front, or are they also on the sides and or the back?
Great question. It's along the full width and then on the left and right vertical edges as well. So you get 2 points of register on both sides of the press, again, allowing you to have multiple 0, 0 points.
So in this case here, in this webinar, we're really kind of showing panels and, you want to print on one side, but we've seen, especially with the whole divisional graphics requirement that's going on in the marketplace at the moment, where being able to print double-sided is very, is crucial, and it's a very efficient way of doing it here.
Maybe while we're still watching that print,
yep.
Couple questions. Actually, it's done printing. That's how fast it is.
That's okay. Go ahead.
Regarding color matching and how we handle Pantone color matching. Do you want to describe that in Fiery XF tools at all? And also with that, is there a color white color mode that we would use for clear materials, or how we handle that multi-layer?
Excellent. All good questions. I am going to, at this time, ask that we hold for just a minute while we switch and finish out the panel, and then I'll certainly switch back and address those other questions. So I believe, okay, there we go. So we just took that piece right off the printer, and as promised, it is just a piece of a completed mural. So end-use application, you would, spec out your entire wall and come up with your artwork that would cover the whole wall. In this instance, we had artwork that would complete 3 panels. You can see that we printed complete edge to edge, full bleed everywhere. Alignment is perfect. Again, it's a really, really stable product. They were really square, laid really flat. I didn't have to do anything funky on the printer. So you can just take that completed product, take it off the printer, and go ahead and install it. And as you can see, the alignment, that control of the dot, let me zoom in a little bit here, is just absolutely beautiful. And it's funny, so I printed the first 2 panels yesterday, just knowing that we wouldn't have the time to print all 3 today. And I came in today to several people wondering what we were going to be doing with these panels after the demonstration, that they would look great in their houses. So it's really eye-catching, and it's effective, right? I think Rob's talked a little bit about the acoustics available to it and what those specs are. I'm sure you can find them online, or reach out to into Interlam to get any additional details of anything that you might need. But again, it prints like a dream. You saw it. It's quick. It was easy. I didn't have to do anything crazy, and it looks really, really nice. All right, Sean, if you want to go ahead and switch back. All right, so color management. Can we share software again? So I'm going to do the quick one first. We do have up to 3 layers in one pass through the printer on all of the products in our wide format portfolio. So you can do white only, CMYK only, white over color, white under color, or color white color. In all of those instances, white can be a flood or a complete bounding box, or a shape white like you saw us doing with the slate. So you have complete control over that in one pass through the printer. Speaking specifically to the flatbed applications, 24F and 30F, you can build texture, wood grains, faux marble, faux brick, by using the pile height of inkjet ink. So you can print the same image over and over and over again, and eventually you'll build up what you can determine to be an acceptable texture. Or you can print to a pre-textured substrate in a single pass using less ink and less time, achieve that texture with the material. In color management, so if you have a spot color, I happen to have a file that I was using. There we go. So this one here, you open it in Job Editor, and we'll come over to the Color Output tab, and you can see that I have multiple Pantone colors. So out of the gates, I'm going to load my material, I'm going to rip my file, and I'm going to go ahead and print right out of the gates with no management. I'm going to get my book, say, yes, these 5 colors work. These 2 over here need to be modified. They're a little too cool, a little too warm. They don't match, whatever the case may be. So you can then take that spot color, or those spot colors that don't meet your requirements, open up Color Editor. And really quickly, while that's opening, I want to point out this is included and on board with all of the wide format products in the portfolio. It's not an add-on. It's not going to be one of those things where you call your sales guy up on day 5 and say, hey, I got to match your color, and he's going to say, give me another 10 grand. It's included. It's all on board. It'll be part of the onboarding and the training as well. So if our color that we needed to match, say, was 286, we can go ahead, create a duplication of that 286. We can convert it to a CMYK breakdown based on the output mode that you're going to be using. And you can see now as a CMYK breakdown, and then we can do a quick gamut check, again, based on the output mode that we're going to be using. And write Inkjet. Then we go ahead and we hit next, and we can say, yes, it's 100% within gamut, out of the gates without having to change anything with a delta of 3.4. Now, the natural eye will start seeing a shift in color at a delta of 3, which is why maybe when you did the initial evaluations, you saw this one needed to be modified. So if it does indeed need to be modified, you can then come over here and you can create a variation. Again, based on your output mode, you can create a variation. And by adjusting these buttons here, you can increase or decrease your saturation or your brightness. Or you can go ahead and hit print, and what it's going to do is you can check a neighborhood pattern or search pattern. My personal favorite is the neighborhood pattern. You go ahead and hit print, and it's going to output this variation that you can see on the software right now. And what this variation is in the top center, it's giving you that initial output with no modification. And then all those squares around it are multiple different increased saturation, brightness, more cyan, less cyan, all kinds of different predetermined iterations for you. So now you can take this one printed sheet and you already have multiple iterations done for you that you can then take your book or take your target and say, all right, this one matches. So you'll just do exactly what you did with the initials. You'll go ahead and just print this right out of the gates. You can see again, it's going to give you values. So this is your original. And as you're comparing your original to the target, you can say, all right, well, this one down here is the better match. It's going to give you your CMYK breakdown that you will then enter here. And as you save those new CMYK values, every single time Pantone 286 come in, it will automatically be optimized to those settings that you've determined to be the closer match to 286. It takes probably 10 minutes out of the gates to go ahead and go through this process. So if you have, the first couple of days after your install, give yourself a little bit of time to take those key target or, key accounts that are going to be, your big customers that have very color critical work. Go ahead and go through this process, work through that. And then once it's done, you don't ever have to go back to it. Those iterations will be saved.
Yep. And obviously, you can also respond to a new request, down the road, right? So
yep, quickly.
It's not something that you have to do up front. It's something that you can do over time as they come in.
So another question came in and might be a good one to kind of detail on towards the end of the webinar, which is what does the daily maintenance look like, or the maintenance schedule in the 30F? What does that take?
Good question. So on install, you will get a maintenance schedule, and it is available if anybody does need it. You can reach out directly, but basically it will give you a breakdown of your by shift, so your daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, semi-annual, and annual operator level maintenance that needs to be done. So what we suggest and what our training team will suggest is that you go ahead and print that out and attach it to the printer somewhere, print it on magnet, print it on PSA, whatever, attach it to the printer and have your operators sign off on it. So it's going to give you a breakdown of everything that needs to be done every single day. Also comes with an interactive PDF. So if you get to something, say on your quarterly stuff that you don't know how to do, there is an interactive PDF available that you can then, click on different links. It'll give you video tutorials, step-by-step instructions, part numbers for consumables that you might need. So you have all of that information available to you on install, but your everyday stuff, in the morning, you're going to be 5 to 7 minutes. What you're going to do is you're going to open your carriage cover. If it's a Monday or Tuesday after a long weekend, there are some really quick access bleed lines in the front of the press. You're going to open up those bleed lines. You're going to do a quick manual purge. It's going to remove any air that could have potentially been introduced to the lines over the weekend. Again, that's going to take 2 or 3 minutes. The cleaning of those jets after they've been purged is automated. It's taken care of by the printer. So as the end user, you're not going to have to glove up and hand wipe or anything. And then you're going to print a jet test. Keep stock of some cheap material. It doesn't cost a lot for you guys. Print your jet test. If you have all of your nozzles, you're going to evaluate that test. If they're all there, you're off to the races. Again, maybe 5 minutes. If you do have a couple of missing nozzles, do another automated purge. Again, software will purge the printer and the printer will clean itself as well. So again, it's all automated, hands off. Do another jet test. If everything's recovered, again, you're off to the races. So your startup is really pretty quick. By nature of those LED lamps, you're not waiting for any sort of heat systems to warm up. You're not waiting for lamps to warm up. They're instant on, instant off, and no cool down time as well. No warm up time, no cool down time.
So there are air filters for the
lamps,
curing lamps, right? One thing that we definitely recognized is that people that take care of their equipment, they work great and they're very happy with their experience. And as Tiffany was saying, it doesn't require a lot of effort, but these machines do require a little bit of effort to maintain them. The other thing that these machines they're designed to print, and making sure that you print on a daily basis or 5 days a week, and these are things that obviously during the sales discovery you'll be kind of talking to about what type of printer you need, the bandwidth, the throughput. But again, these it's like a high-speed car. You definitely want it to perform, and it's designed for that.
Yep. But it's also designed to be quick and easy, right? So it's still an entry-level production product. It's an industrial build, but it's also designed to be very easily maintained, very limited intervention. So to Danny's point, there's air filters and stuff, and again, those need to be changed out on a scheduled basis. But the everyday, we talked about the startup. On shutdown, you're going to raise your carriage to that 4-inch height. You're going to use the EFI solvent cleaning solution to just hand wipe the jet plate, not the heads themselves, but the jet plate that they're mounted to. And then do a visual inspection of your static ionization bars, do a visual inspection of your lamps, clean both as needed. And it's at that point you'll look at those air filters and those first and last hockey puck filters at the ink delivery system, do a visual inspection and change as needed. So your shutdown is going to be a little bit longer, maybe 10 to 15 minutes. Your startup, again, maybe 5 to 7. Anything else?
Yeah, so we was kind of, I think you just covered this up, but about any cleaning solutions needed for the print heads?
So for the print heads, you will get it's in the same size bottles as your 1 liter ink jugs, but it's an EFI, it's like a jet plate cleaner. If you get any ink on the table or whatever, you can use that to clean it off as well. But you're just going to clean the jet plate with that. There's no flushing solution or anything that you need to worry about until you get into that, a service problem. But your everyday stuff, it's just a cleaning solution. For your lamps, you're just going to use isopropyl alcohol. Same thing with your static ionization bars. The table is treated. You can see that last print made a bit of a mess on the table, but it is treated so that you can just take a razor at the end of the day and the ink comes right off. Again, it's once it's cured, it's really, sort of a plastic almost. So it scrapes right off nice and easy. It doesn't make a big mess either. So as far as that goes with maintenance, it's not bad at all.
And what would you say the lifetime of the print heads is?
Well, that depends. Are you taking care of it? So we have some customers, historically that do really good maintenance. They're printing on pretty standard, pretty standard materials, and they never have to change a print head. If you are printing on AstroTurf or carpet or something crazy, full production 24 hours a day, it's going to require more day-to-day maintenance, and you might potentially run into a situation where you might be changing heads more than the average person. All of the materials that you saw here, most of the standard materials out there, as long as you're doing your maintenance, cleaning your heads, doing the appropriate amount of printing to keep those jets open, you're not going to have to worry about changing print heads like you would on some of the other competitive equipment. They're not designed to be a consumable. There are jets included, I think 2.
Exactly. So under warranty, when you buy the printer, you get protection of 4 print heads. And when you join the ESP program, which is our service program, you basically get 2 print heads towards warranty.
So, and that number is comprised by market demand. So you take how many people out there are replacing print heads and how many print heads per year, and you average that out, and that becomes what's included with the printer. So again, if you're talking about all of the heads that you have on board and only needing potentially 2 worst case scenario, do your maintenance, take care of your material, pay attention to what you're doing, and it's not going to be a consumable like you see on other products that are out there, other competitive equipment.
Okay.
All right. Well, thank you for taking the time today. Rob, you still on the line?
I'm still here. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Okay.
Excellent products, Rob. They were dreamy to print on, nice and easy, no problems at all.
So
Glad to hear it.
Rob, thanks very much for joining and participating in this webinar. Thank you for everybody who joined us. And from a great, beautiful day out in Manchester, New Hampshire, thanks for joining.
One last plug too. Just I did give this for a couple people in chat, but if they're interested in a lot of the materials that we ran today, that is at interlam-design.com. So go check that out, please. Amazing materials, not just what we showed you today, but a whole plethora of multiple companies that Rob manages that have some really unique products out there. So interlam-design.com.
Thank you,
so much
guys.
for joining.
Thank you, everybody. Have a great
you.
day.